everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Belly to Belly. And we're here with good friend Thomas Teger. How are you, sir?
Excellent. How are you, Bill?
I'm great, thank you. And you have a company called Concept One, and you're helping U.S. and international companies grow and expand in the U.S. Can you maybe describe a little bit about what you're doing?
Yeah, I built this company just recently, coming out of an exit of a startup that I helped co-found. Um, I built this company basically as a as a vehicle to kind of like funnel or collect my 30 years or 30-year plus of experience in the industry, anything between product management, product design, strategy. But, and this is why I'm here talking to you, right? Also, 30 years of really of messaging, branding, marketing, go to market, and really the heart of this conversation here, representing not just myself, but the companies I worked for at trade shows.
Sure. Well, you mentioned Swatchbook. And do you want to talk a little bit about that journey? You all grew very quickly, and I'm sure there were some great lessons learned there.
Very, very much so. It was a perfect opportunity. It was like the perfect storm, bringing three people together. Very serendipitous. Not and then the best things usually happen when they're not planned, right? They're just meant to be. And even though we kind of knew, or in particular the then CEO of Swatchbook and I knew each other from previous engagements, casual engagements, but we knew each other, but had kind of like that immediate respect, when sometimes when you meet people and it takes you can't describe it, but it takes about 25 nanoseconds to figure out whether this is the real deal, or the person is, full of crap. And so he was one of those rare occasions, where we clicked instantly and we were on the same page, and ended up building, even though he had a Swatchbook built already, but really it was kind of like a rebuild. And this was the first instance where when we started that in 2018, is within 2 months, basically he had the product basically developed. But it was like, what was lacking is kind of like that go-to-market plan, and how, it was anything from like, okay, the messaging was sort of there, but then it's having the product, having the offerings, pricing, packaging. How can we make money with this, and really bring it to market, and we did this, we got together, and within 2 months, we brought the product to market. One of the things that we were stickless about was actually the company representation, the branding. We started with that branding, and very clear and simple messaging. And then as we developed very quickly, and actually, so even though we're talking about companies coming from from the outside to the US, we went the other way, because being a US company, but for example, we built a company, actually a subsidiary in China, which again, finding the right people in China, very serendipitous. You can't go to China and find somebody you can, I'm going to build a company in China. Doesn't work. But, we happened to run into the right people, right mindset, absolutely fantastic. But having everything ready so that we could hand everything to our Chinese team then on a silver platter, basically, and to let them run with all the materials that we actually prepared, so that we have from the get-go also this consistent, recognizable branding, and therefore the overall setup that we have built in the United States.
So, and there are so many great lessons, I'm sure, that have come not just from the Swatchbook experience, but your previous experience. So as you're thinking about the companies you're working with now, again, whether they're native US companies or offshore companies coming in, where are the big challenges? Where do companies tend to struggle the most?
They struggle to engage with a potential client. Like, as almost as if they said, I don't know what it is, but are we too technical, right? Instantly, you're kind of like, you're diving into, the core of the product, of the solution, of the platform, whatever you're selling, and while that person might be on par and might understand, but it's almost like this, the German said, is it maybe I need to be better bullshitter, which I'm totally against,
Totally.
always the person,
No,
right?
please. Yeah.
Because I'm always like, I tell you, I'm always sold. Here's what I have, what I can do, and if I don't do it, then and we can't do it, or it's not there. I have no reason to,
Mm, mm,
blow smoke. I'm telling you how it is. So, but they felt like this is like Americans kind of gravitate to more of like the rah, paint, paint the paint a picture that might be a little bit exaggerated, right?
mm.
And the Germans are just not good at that.
Yeah, I guess my observation is that U.S. buyers buy benefits. They don't. The features are less important until they understand why. Is that maybe some of the translation problem?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, right.
Mm,
And you can tell also because if it comes to like really like a feature-based discussion, it almost feels like you're not a serious buyer anyways, right? Because it's like
yeah,
maybe, but I found that more often than not, right? Let's focus on what I can actually, with the solution that I have, what I can actually do for you, and what I'm helping you solve, right?
right. How would you say that the companies you work with do? Because I mean, it seems to me that all the messaging starts with who you're targeting, right? It's got to
Right.
be the sort of
Yeah.
audience centered. So how do the companies do at first being very specific in terms of who their prospect is, or who at least their hypothetical buyer persona is?
It's actually one of my first questions.
Right.
It's like, okay, so I can tell. Okay, so you go, let's say, after retail,
Mm,
um, but it's not really clear then. Who it is. Are you talking to designers now? Are we going to talk? Are you going to talk about the marketing people, or is it both, or somewhere in between, or are we talking on the
right.
sales side? I think this is. I just spoke with a company the other day, and I was looking at your website. I said, you do so much, but then it's not clear. What are you selling? Kind of like, and then as also what is your core competency, and then who you going after, right? I mean, if you help me, if you ask me to help you, penetrate the U.S. market, I have to understand who you actually trying to sell to, because I think before we even get there, let's actually work on that messaging and getting that right.
Yeah, once you understand who the target is and being very precise about that, understanding kind of what's keeping them awake at night is the kind of the beginning of the architecting of whatever messaging you're going to. Because once you understand their biggest pain, then life gets easier at that point.
So I understand that when you're starting out, we as a US based company, you always have the luxury of you're closer to it. But coming from Europe, let's say, finding the right medium, right, and in particular now the right shows to exhibit, because I still believe very much in actual physical presence. So trade shows for me are something, fortunately, that should be more thereof, rather than all these online things. But so finding basically the right uh, the right level of engagement, basically the right show, right?
Mm-hmm.
Understand, because with your right target audience, and I think that's true when you're from the outside in, you can burn through a lot of cash, and this is just the fear of you running through your budget. You want to make sure that as much as possible. This is what I'm trying to help to get it right the first time. Go to these shows, and if the messaging for whatever reason has to vary because it's different type of audience, so be it. But really make sure that the money you spend is really well spent, right? And also then you can actually walk in with an expectation of what you expect. Expectation of what you want to get out of it, or what you expect to get out of it, right? Because I've seen so many times that and even again, this comes back to also seeing these US based companies, is like where I'm thinking, I know this, you will not make your money back, right? And so why are you even here? What are you trying to sell? And you spend so much money, but you're missing basically on almost everything, starting with representation, messaging, all of this. So the more this can be defined and refined, it sounds so obvious, but the reason why we're talking about it is because I think it's getting missed more often than it gets done right.
Yeah. No, I mean, our normal when a company's starting out, again, whether U.S. native or international coming in, is to look at small local and regional shows at first, because it's whether they're playing baseball, or they're playing European football, or football that the rest of the world, but the America plays. The nobody starts at the World Cup or the World Series, right? They start at sort of simpler games, minor league, and they work their way up, and that's because the skills and the reaction time and all of those things need to improve, and going to small kind of local and regional shows provide both that opportunity to test and experiment, but also the opportunity to learn and evolve the conversation, and probably more important, to hear and to listen to what the reactions you're getting from your prospects are. And besides the fact, you're talking about hundreds of dollars of investment versus tens of thousands of dollars if you're going to the national type events.
One thing I also really want to add to it, this is, and again, you'd think this is so obvious, but I was at a recent trade show called SIGGRAPH. It's the biggest thing for computer graphics, and brings together really computer graphic geeks from all over the world for an entire week. And it's more about the lectures and the papers that are being presented, and some incredible stuff coming out of it, always. And they have an exhibit hall for and then also all these labs, basically, where they show prototypes and stuff like that. But there's an exhibit hall, and it used to be huge, in the 90s, right? This is because it was pre-internet and so forth, right? But so it feels like there's a comeback. But so that exhibit hall, represents or allows you to, for a reasonable amount of money, to exhibit and show your solutions. So now, of course, I haven't been to that show in 6 years, but so I got back, and of course, you get a bunch of AI companies. So for me, the first thing that I noticed is on the first rule of thumb, you come into the US, hey, in terms of understand your audience, send somebody who can understand English. Why? I mean, seriously, this sounds so try. It's almost dumb. I was but yeah, of course. Believe me, I was in the Sony. I was surprised. I was in the Sony booth. It was
mature
so
company,
difficult. Very mature, and not strapped for cash either.
Right.
It was hard to have that conversation. I have very specific questions to have the conversation, because I'm not dissing the people, but it's not the right audience. Do you not? Okay, the event was in Vancouver. Could you not have flown somebody from the US over who can actually communicate well with the audience? Because most of the audience, is English speaking, right?
Wow.
So I was
brutal.
so shocked.
Oh my gosh!
Shocking.
Oh, that's So I think there's just so many good lessons here. This is Thomas. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate it. I think we have more to talk about. I suggest we'll need to do this again. And
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But thank you for taking the time today. There's been some great tips.
Anytime. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.